Hey guys, alright, so it looks like the news just keeps getting worse and worse. So, if you didn't see my video last night, please watch that, where China seems to be cremating the bodies of patients, and we've gotten confirmation from that by multiple Chinese sources, Chinese doctors. And what they're doing and why the actual death count and the cases aren't where we believe it should be is because what China is doing is, let's say somebody dies, right? Well, they say on the death certificate, they're putting organ failure or complications from heart disease or something like that, when that's not really why. Technically everyone dies because their heart stops and they stop breathing. But like here in the US, we would put complications from the influenza virus, that's what you would put. And they've done this before. They've done this with their every year flu. They do it every single year. And so for them to be doing it with this is honestly no surprise from what the Chinese doctors are saying. All right, well, this just came in. Trump administration declares coronavirus emergency, orders the first quarantine in 50 years. Thank freaking goodness. But let's go through the rest of this information that... All right, so just some breaking news. Right now, we have this astonishing study out of China that they finally decided to release, which, y'all, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. The R0 value is 4.08. Remember when we were talking about that? When we were speaking of what it was at this time, the flu has a 0.1%. Oh, I'm sorry, 1.28. And we were saying that the R0 of this was 2.5 to 3.5. We now have this paper out of China saying it is a 4.1. What does that mean in the case of numbers? It's not good. Supposedly, all flights to and from China have now been canceled. Is it too late? I don't know. Let's go through these numbers. When you have an R0 of 1, for every one person that gets infected, one other person is going to get infected. And then it is 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? When you get up to 1.28, which is our flu, you have 1. And then you have, so for every 10 people, you infect like one person. Well, 2 people. You get up to 2. For every 1 person, you're infecting 2 people. And then that means the next cycle, they'll infect 4 people. Then it'll be 8 people. So on and so forth. When you get up to 3, which is what we thought it was, and we thought it was bad. For every 1 person, they're going to infect 3. And then 9. 27. And after infecting 9 people, it turns into 6,000 people. But with a 4 value, every 1 person infects 4 people. Those 4 people are going to each infect 4 people, which means 16. All 16 of those are going to end up infecting 64, which would be 256. 4,000, 16,000, 65,000, and within technically only going from 10 steps, you're going to have 260,000. So this is the information that the World Health Organization had when they still said that travel and trade should not be affected. They had this information. So before anybody continues to praise China, I want y'all to see this. This is one of the doctors that was arrested, brought into, and because he was sharing this information on WeChat, saying this is extremely bad. That this was their first patient that they had come into contact with back in December. And he was telling everybody on their WeChat, because that's how they communicate. And he was brought into the police station and told, "We hope that you calm down and reflect on what you have done." And we warn you that if you continue this stubborn behavior and don't repent and continue to carry out this illegal activities, you will be punished to the fullest extent. They would have punished him to the fullest extent if they weren't having such a crisis. Look, he even had to put his fingerprint in. I hope that's not blood, but they let him go back to the hospital because they're so desperate for doctors. But this is how insane China was, what they were doing. So before anybody continues thinking that, oh, people are overreacting, this has been going on for months. This is no joke. They've pretty much threatened all doctors to shut their mouths. And so we need to really support these doctors and share this information. And I find it just horrific that, you know, our mainstream media here in the U.S. are being so without a backbone. They just have no backbone at all. I was even watching RT, where a lot of times they're pretty accurate on things that aren't Russia or whatever, but they usually are a lot more honest than many of them. But even them, they were downplaying this and saying China is doing a wonderful job. We should give them props for their fast mobilization and all of these things. And it's like, what? Fast mobilization? Watch my other videos, if my one from 2 days ago, I think, about that, because it absolutely wasn't. Anyway, let's get on with this. So in the U.S. right now, what's going on? I've gotten this from multiple nurses and doctors and even patients, people that have gone into the emergency room with cold-like symptoms. This is what's going on. If you don't know, right now, the only way to test for coronavirus, for the novel coronavirus. See, people, let me get that straight for some people. Coronavirus has been around for hundreds of years. It's the same as saying, I'm a mammal, but so is a dog. But that doesn't make a dog a human. Coronavirus is the family, okay? The common cold is coronavirus. SARS was a coronavirus. MERS, the Middle Eastern type SARS, a coronavirus. I know for my normal watchers you've heard this before, but apparently there's so many people that keep talking about this that they don't get it. They don't get it, and they're acting like, oh, they had this pandemic trial run, you know, or this that simulation a few months ago. Yeah, they did, because coronavirus is one of the main ones that makes a big deal. I believe the Spanish flu was even a coronavirus. This is not something that jumped out of the air. This is not something that was man-made. This coronavirus has been around for a very, very long time. I just don't get how people don't do the basic research and then put out information as if they know stuff. I mean, it's just irresponsible. So please stop doing that. Anyway, what's going on is in the U.S., since the only way to test for the coronavirus is to get it tested at the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, the only people currently that I'm aware of that multiple people are telling me, and even the standard operating procedures in hospitals right now, is they are not testing patients for coronavirus unless you have come into contact with someone from China. It's the only way. So they don't think that you can get it unless you contacted somebody in China. So if somebody flew on a plane and picked it up there, then went out shopping, hung out with friends, then you got it from them because they got it from the plane, y'all still don't know about it because the symptoms don't present sometimes for 2 entire weeks. They're not going to test you. See, a lot of people were wondering, and me as well, why there's only been 100 people who have been tested so far. I mean, my gracious, we've flown in more people than that. Every single one of them should be tested. Everybody that, I wouldn't be on an airplane right now. And that's why the pilots are suing right now. The Pilot Association, labor union or whatever, is suing so they don't have to fly to China anymore and shut it down, which it should be. It should all be shut down. We might have to do this at a state level. It looks like some states are doing that, which is great. I think Maryland is one of them, and that might be what we have to do to get this pushed. Have it at a state level. They have Detroit shut down one of their schools, and there's things going on at a local level. And honestly, that's kind of what we'll have to do because it doesn't look like the DC is going to do anything about it. It just doesn't. So this is really important. They aren't testing patients. If you go in with flu-like symptoms, they aren't going to test you for coronavirus. They're going to test you for the flu and send you on your way. They'll test you during your autopsy. That might sound sick, but it's true. That's the same thing that was going on during the Ebola. For those of you who have followed me for a long time, that what they were doing was they were testing for like dengue. And if somebody tested positive for dengue, they didn't test them. They stopped testing. They said, okay, it's dengue, let's move on. Then come their autopsy, they were testing positive for Ebola and dengue. So just because you have the influenza A or B that is here in the US all the time, doesn't mean that you don't have the coronavirus as well. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that, oh, everybody that has some sniffles should be tested. But at this point, the way that they did this, the way that they continue to allow flights to come in here, and that we know that it has a 2-week latency period that you can show no signs and symptoms and still be infecting people, everything should be shut down. And we all should be fighting for that. I mean, and we need to just work as a community. Somebody said, oh, you just want martial law. That's ridiculous. And that's such it's an ignorant, narrow-minded way to look at this. You shut everything down to get ahead of it. You don't want to be chasing it. When you're chasing something that's faster than you, you're never going to catch it. You're always going to be behind. And I had you can go read the comments, many nurses in my comments saying exactly what I was saying, how there's only a handful of BiPAPs and CPAPs and ventilators in every single hospital across the United States. And ICUs are always full. And when we have a virus that is having 20% of the people infected needing an ICU bed, it doesn't look like you're going to get that bed. That's why, think about it. That's why China is making these hospitals in 10 days. People are downplaying this. Just think about it in any type of logical reasoning. I know I've said this in my other videos, but people need to continue hearing this because they seem to think that this is not a big deal. And now that we know that they aren't even testing for it unless you were actually in China, or if you tell them, hey, by the way, I have a friend that was just in China, they're not going to test you. They're not testing people. So of course it doesn't look like anybody has it, and they can go around gloating about, oh, we only have 5 cases. Weird. There's just 5 cases. If that's the case, awesome. But do we know that? Absolutely not. And the only way to be prepared for something like this is to get in front of it and to take drastic measures. And this isn't just me saying this. This is doctors at very high levels saying this. They just aren't being listened to. Just like, I mean, they are acting like North Korea here in the United States. The way that they are treating these doctors that are saying, look, we need it shut down. But I've had a lot of people also comment saying, my family isn't taking this seriously. They think I'm crazy. Don't feel alone. Mine too. Not all of them. Many of them. And that's just the American way, apparently. They're not going to do anything until their neighbor's kid dies, or their kid dies, their grandkid. That's the majority of America. They believe what they're hearing on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, because they don't read past the first, usually the headline, the first couple of sentences, and they say, oh, cool. But when you read all the way at the bottom, they usually do put the information in there, even when they're trying to sway you. It's usually somewhere buried deeply in there. But when we're having doctors come out and confirm that this is going on, our government needs to do something. No, we need to do something. Forget them. They're not doing anything. They're just not. We need to be prepared. And that's what my next video is going to be about. I'm getting all this out for y'all so I've had a lot of people ask what you need to have, and we will go through that, as well as masks and things like that. We're going to have to take this into our own hands. Masks are selling out like crazy, mainly because people are just being capitalist and trying to sell $5 masks for $50 during this pandemic. It's pretty sick. It's one thing to do that with a Christmas present, with a Tickle Me Elmo, but to do that for life-saving, whatever, people that are not taking this seriously are being ignorant. Plain and simple. Because there's just so many reasons. And we're seeing it in, we're seeing what's going on. Germany is reporting, I mean, there's all of these other countries. Italy shut down for what, like 6 months? The kids are going to be doing homeschooling. That's great. That's exactly what needs to happen. There are universities in certain in places in China that have shut down. That's great. Venezuela shut down their flights in and out. Russia shut down their border, their eastern border. Many other countries have shut down their flights. Israel, yeah, they shut down their flights. Go figure, that's kind of funny, being that they're selling our technology that they stole from us to China. That's a different video for a different time. Anyway, guys, this is serious. Be prepared. That's all. I mean, we can't depend on the government. That's for sure. And I never thought. I mean, I never considered that we needed to depend on the government. But who I'm speaking of is the people that need